Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I had absolutely no idea what kind of crowd we were going to get and who was going to be here. It's wonderful to see such a disparate array of faces, people I have absolutely no idea of who you are, and people who I've seen and known for many years, and a few people I've forgotten, but now I know the face. But we all have one particular connection, and that is with the magnificent Dennis, and the opportunity to say a fitting farewell to him. I thought when we were looking at the program, we couldn't really think of a song, a hymn. It didn't seem right to be singing a hymn exactly. And then some clever brain struck on something that I think really hits the essence of what Dennis meant to us as a school, but certainly I hope what he meant to all of you, and that is the song, What a Wonderful World. And it's going to be sung by a mother of two Rondebosch, not old boys yet, young boys, some time before they are old boys, and an ex-staff member of the school, and the wife of our music director, Mark de Kock. And ask Jessie to come forward and sing a song. I think we're allowed to clap. It's not a funeral.
I see trees of green, where roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies how blue and clouds so white. Right on a sacred day, dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're saying, I love you. And he makes cry. I watch them grow. They'll run more. I know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Thank you, Jess. I think that's spot on as far as Dennis is concerned. Got to tell you, I used to think it was quite funny. And I suppose some of you did too, the way in which Dennis used to break into sobbing tears whenever something special touched his life. And I found as I get older, I'm starting to do the same thing. I don't know if I'm following in Dennis's footsteps, but he certainly had a way of touching people in that way. So this isn't a funeral, but it is a reflection of a life well lived by a man who, by his oxymoronic, self-reticent, yet pushy, gentlemanly, yet rough around the edges, deadly serious, yet infinitely eye-twinklingly fun-loving, touched our lives. Let's remember that ultimately Dennis's mantra was spread joy. He would be more partial to an Irish wake than a funeral. So let's enjoy the next hour or so in a manner that Dennis would have felt fitting. Although I may claim legitimately that this is my school and my hall, I understand that I stand in a borrowed space and that here at this memorial, I'm something of an interloper. I'm not an old friend, nor family of Dennis and Hilary's, nor one of Dennis's many sport and adventure battle-scarred chums, as many of you in attendance are. I am, however, lucky to be at this point in time the current head of one of Dennis's great loves, Rondebosch Boys High School. And as a result, I've been lucky enough over the years to have been drawn into Dennis's circle of trust. Dennis loved belonging to things greater than himself. But more than that, he loved drawing others in so they could share the joy these things gave him. Dennis's generosity to the school was never about self-aggrandizement. In a 21st century sense, he would never have rated his contribution by follows, friend requests, or likes. His measure was always about the joy it brought to others. And even more than that, the joy he got out of quietly watching others enjoy having the things that they did not have before he was lucky enough to have the means to share them. How lucky were we to be alive at a time when we could be beneficiaries of his joy. I hope that the boys of the school who were able to rub shoulders with Dennis and to benefit from the gifts he gave us will not just give him a nod of appreciation. I trust that studying the things that Dennis did, they will learn something about what it means to be a proper man. Caroline Fowler, our former head of marketing, mother to a Rondebosch old boy, and in later years, Dennis's administrative assistant, I'm not sure if she knew she was, but that's what she would be, sent us this poem that Dennis shared with her. And although it's a little sentimental and corny, and let's be honest, those of us who are on Dennis's WhatsApp contacts got quite used to corny, the words were authentically Dennisian because they get to the heart of the man we've come to love. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noticed that first came the date of birth and following date with tears, but he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth, and now only those who loved them know what that line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. The lesson Dennis leaves us and leaves the boys of the school is as much about the spaces that we leave between things as it is about the spaces that we fill. Caroline also mentions in one of her messages that Dennis, in considering his death, would always say, she would always say he'd gallop off into the sunset on a white horse. And Caroline would say, well, let's hope you can hold on to the reins and keep your feet in the stirrups. And his reply was, so it goes. One of Dennis's many iterations was a love of literature. The line, so it goes, a famous recurring refrain from Kurt Vonnegut's 1969 masterpiece, The Slaughterhouse-Five. In the novel, the phrase is repeated exactly 106 times. It serves as a deadpan, fatalistic mantra that follows every single mention of death, dying, or mortality, whether it's the tragic bombing of Dresden or a bottle of champagne going flat. The line represents the philosophy of the story's alien race, the Truffamadorians, because they exist in 4 dimensions. They see all of time simultaneously. To a Truffamadorian, a person is only dead in one particular moment, but perfectly alive and well in many others. When someone dies, they simply look at the other moment in that person's life and say, so it goes. In making sense of Dennis's last years and the things that brought tears to his eyes, So It Goes fittingly balances the deep sense of grief with an appreciation for the minute, beautiful details and the absurdities of life. Like a picture of me standing with Dennis at the world's biggest pineapple just outside Bathurst. Dennis teaches us how to draw our appreciation from small miracles of life. He was an impressive traveler and made it his life's work to see everything because he could. If you look at the map up on the screen there, those red dots, he had this map up in his house at Churchhaven. And those red dots represent all the places he's been to. And I think when I took this photograph, he still hadn't been to Antarctica and several other spots. So this isn't quite everywhere, but he certainly went to a lot of places. Dennis teaches us to draw our appreciation from the small miracles of life. He was an impressive traveler and made it his life's work to see everything because he could. His philosophy, as I understand, was to travel light. My girls were the happy recipient of many of Dennis's business class toiletry bags, Armani perfume, and all, but often Sans toothbrush and toothpaste. Hilary mentioned to my wife that they'd been invited to a posh New York country club once, but the hostess had made certain not to ask Hilary to ensure he wore a tie, but to ensure that Dennis brushed his hair for the occasion. When he heard that my family and I were going on a trip to New York, his greatest excitement was encouraging us to visit a pet shop in Upper Manhattan, where puppies were on display in the shop window. And when we went to London and stayed for a night in his posh Kensington flat, he encouraged us to visit not the high-end fashion shops, but an urban farm market where they sell the most extraordinary, large, red, fresh tomatoes. It was quite interesting going to this particular flat, or this timeshare that Dennis and Hilary had in London, because the doorman's name was James. It's just fitting to have James at the door. And the extraordinary thing about him was that he could tell us more about Dennis than we knew ourselves, which was indicative of the fact that Dennis had spent time with him, talking to him. And I don't think there are many doormen in Kensington who could tell you quite as much about people as they could tell you about Dennis, because they were just his chums. They weren't necessarily doormen. Dennis was a master of the art of encouraging without imposing, like pointing us to puppies and fresh tomatoes. If we can learn that sharing and giving a greater sense of satisfaction than having and owning, I think Dennis will feel that his job is done. Without many of the boys knowing that he had facilitated the structure to do so, he brought such joy to so many members of the school community. There's an old adage, give and it will be given to you. I hope that counterintuitively, holding this recognition of his contribution to so many lives at the school can bring a bit of joy to those who feel his loss. If I may be so bold, Hilary, when Paddy and I spoke to Dennis in his last days, he was thinking of the physical legacy that he could leave and not acknowledging perhaps the extraordinary body of work that he had already built, not only physically, but in people's hearts and lives. In all of this, Dennis was at pains to express how grateful he was to have had you as a partner in his journey and to tell us how much he loved and appreciated you. So I'd like to recognize that, but also to thank you for the generosity of you being willing to allow him to share this space and to share a bit of Dennis with all of us and with the body of the school. The place is only made great by the quality of the people who inhabit it. And Dennis, although small of stature, occupied a lot of space, and in doing so, added to the ethos and spirit of Rondebosch boys. So Dennis, in memory of you, I commit myself to the sacred duty of spreading joy. Go well, my chum. We will miss you. I'm going to ask Dennis's grandson, Zev, who just happened to also be an old boy of the school and a great rugby forward and prop forward for that matter, which I think Dennis was immensely proud of. Zev is going to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank you all for being here to honor and remember my grandfather, Dennis. It's a privilege to be given the opportunity to stand here and speak on behalf of my family. He was a man who lived a full life, not quietly in the background, but surrounded by people, conversation, laughter, and connection. He was a social man, someone who enjoyed people and made people feel part of his world. One of his greatest loves was the school. Rondebosch was not just a school he once attended. It became a part of who he was. He carried its traditions, its values, and its spirit with him throughout his entire life. His involvement in the school, especially through rugby and rowing, meant so much to him. He followed the teams, the results, and the school with real pride. He loved being part of the community, and I think anyone who knew him understood just how deeply Rondebosch lived in his heart. This brought a more personal connection between the two of us. I'm his youngest grandson and one of the only other members of the family who attended Rondebosch. I always felt that he took a quiet pride in knowing that I had walked the same grounds, wore the same badge, and experienced a place that had such a special place in his heart. It gave us a bond that I will always treasure. As I was writing this, one story came vividly to mind, one which I think captures his humor so well. It was during my grade 11 year, and Mr. van Rensburg can testify to this, a few days after we had beaten Paul Boys in a rugby match on their home field. My grandfather was congratulating me and finished the conversation off with, "Remember, a Dutchman is no match for a Dutch Jew." Dennis leaves behind more than just memories. He leaves behind a legacy of loyalty, love, and pride in the people that shape you. He taught us that life is richer when it is shared with others. And while we will miss him deeply, we are grateful for the life he lived and for the lessons he shared. I feel incredibly honored to stand here today, honored to have known him, and honored to carry a small part of his legacy forward. Thank you.
So when we were putting the program together, we thought we had to find a way in which we could represent as much of Dennis and his involvement in the school and the lives of people who were attached to him. And so it's been brilliant to get a couple of names to join us today. One of those is John LaRue. John has had so much to do with the school over the years in terms of giving his own pound of flesh, his own time, but also in sharing a great love of the game of rugby with Dennis. And developing rugby in the school, particularly with Dennis. That's not all that John has done. I don't want to diminish his contribution to purely rugby fields. John has been a huge contributor to the school, and I'll ask him to come forward and say a few words.
Dennis, I'm going to talk to you. You were older than me by quite a few years, so we didn't know each other at school or early rugby playing days, but we shared an incredible passion for both rugby and Rondebosch, and as a result, connected. We did quite a bit of old boys rugby together, playing for the school old boys fifth against the school fifth team. I think the game that I remember, the last game, Dennis, you were in the front row with me and Richard Nurse. You were 70-something, I was 60-something. And you won't be, Dennis, we asked for uncontested scrums, and we were both very surprised to hear that South African rugby had said no more old boys games because it's not right for older men to play against younger boys. And we just thought, well, that was a bit ridiculous, 70-year-olds and 60-year-olds trying to keep up with the youngsters. Dennis, you did things that I think very few other people would do. For many years, you organized a great dinner at Kelvin Grove. Present were the two headmasters, the directors of rugby, the coaches, old boys, and other prominent people. And the purpose was just to go around the table and to talk about rugby at Rondebosch. I think you asked me to organize it, and I was always surprised that there was 100% turnout, and it just speaks wonders for the influence that you had and how much those headmasters and coaches respected you. The projects, you did many projects. I was involved with some of them with you, and what a pleasure to be able to have done it with you. It brought us close together. There was a time where there was a little bit of concern about rugby at the prep school, so it was felt necessary, Dennis, that you and I should go and talk to Ian Ryan, but I thought, well, it'll take 3 months to get an appointment, but because it was Dennis, it was you, we had an appointment the next day. And whatever the suggestion that we came up, Ian Ryan, to his credit, took it very seriously. And it's great that I think, I think we all know that, and I think Ian is quite open, Dennis, that the rugby at the prep school can improve, and they're working hard at it. But it's very, very satisfying to see that the junior school is doing so well. The under-9s are very good. And I think there's a little bit, and Ryan takes a lot of credit, but I think, Dennis, your part, your encouragement, your pushing, and it wasn't so, I see Ian sitting there, Dennis, and it wasn't so long ago we met with him. It was probably a couple of weeks ago, and we were very reassured that it was been taken very seriously, as Dennis, you would like it to be. I think it's obviously a great joy for Dennis and others to see how well the school is doing at rugby, to see that there are 10 Rondebosch boys in the Western Province school, the various Craven Week teams, which is, I don't know if it's a record, but it sounds like one of the best years, and that's great to see. My most recent memory of Dennis, it was a Varsity Cup game up at UCT, one of those cold, miserable evenings, the wind blowing. I think you were at Frailcare at the time. Hilary, you probably could confirm. I think Dennis had to bunk out to get to the rugby game. He pitched up there with short pants, freezing cold, and had a couple of beers and had a great evening and went back to Frailcare. I know that Dennis recently kindly donated one of those mobile stands to UCT Rugby. It's along the side of the field. He didn't want it to be named the Dennis Nick stand, but now that I think we can probably just ignore what he wanted and call it the Dennis Nick stand. And so just for me, I've seen Dennis as a bit of a role model. that the way he lived his life, I think, is something I could learn from. Spreading the joy, traveling, curiosity, interest. I drive around in my car with bananas to give to the hungry people on the road, and I think that was something I learned from Dennis. Dennis, I think, had apples in his car. The car guard, on a cold, wet night, Dennis would see that he got a coffee. And so it wasn't just big things, it was this little things. He touched people. And I regard myself as very lucky to have known Dennis Nick, to have learned from him, and to want to aspire, Dennis, to be more like you. And I'm sorry I never got round to saying it to you personally, Dennis, but I loved you, and I will miss you greatly.
Another huge contributor to the school over the years has been Stephen Duffett. Stephen also, like both John and Dennis, has quietly got on with ensuring the school is stable and runs well, and poked and pushed us to keep going. And it's wonderful to have Stephen with us today, an old friend, old chum. Dennis is, you probably know Dennis better than many of us, and so it'll be good to hear a few words from Stephen on behalf of the Old Boys and the trusts.
Good afternoon to you all. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces here this afternoon. We are here to celebrate the life of my chum, your chum, our chum, Dennis. What an incredible person. Before I continue, I would like to acknowledge Hilary, who is here today with Zeph. On behalf of the Rondebosch community, we extend our sincerest condolences to you and the rest of Dennis's, your family. Hilary shared Dennis's love for the school and was a constant source of support throughout his many years of service and involvement. We are deeply grateful for all that you contributed alongside him, Hilary, and our thoughts are with you today as we celebrate that remarkable and well-loved man, Dennis, or as he was affectionately referred to, that character of note. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the history. Some of you will know it, some of you won't know it. But as a schoolboy, Dennis would have watched this memorial hall being built. So therefore, it's especially fitting that we gather here today to remember him within these four walls. So Dennis's connection to Rondebosch spanned an incredible 84 years. He attended the prep and the high school and matriculated in 1950 at the age of 16. Dennis is all over the school for people that look for places. If, for instance, you stand near the Tinkyhain Fields, there's a bench donated by Dennis. Dennis's name doesn't appear on the bench, but there's a simple plaque which says, "Best memories ever." Those memories remain close to his heart throughout his life and helped to fuel an extraordinary and enduring love of Rondebosch. He served on the Old Boys Committee and was its chairman for 5 years. In 1997, the centenary year, and was a key player and fundraiser for the E42 Centenary Pavilion, the Centenary Computer Center, as well as the Centenary History Book. So the school benefited enormously from his wisdom as well, as he was a highly respected trustee of the Rondebosch Education Trust, as well as a vice president of the union. I was so fortunate and privileged to serve along Dennis on the Old Boys Committee and then later through the Education Trust. Incredibly, it was only a few months ago that he attended his last trust meeting of the Education Trust. You saw Dennis's travels around the world, and boy, he loved to travel, but he always sought out Old Boys in his travels. He delighted in reconnecting and sharing stories and strengthening the bonds forged many, many years ago at Rondebosch. For instance, I remember one trip, it wasn't too long ago, where he went to Canada to follow the migration of the polar bears to the Arctic Circle. but yet he still made time to meet up with old boys in Toronto to reminisce about Bosch. Dennis had so many interests, so please forgive me, I try to keep this as short as possible. Some of you may or may not know that him and Hillary both were enthusiastic supporters of the prep and high school music departments. And they so enjoyed attending functions and concerts, the last being the recent Sunset concert on Cricket A. Dennis loved club rugby, as you've heard from John, and he loved schoolboy rugby, not only as a supporter, as a player. John, when he played Old Crocs, he refused to put on the yellow pants, which means you can't tackle some person, you can touch them. He kept on his black or his white pants in the game. And the esteem in which he was held in sporting circles was perhaps best illustrated on his 80th birthday, when he was permitted to play both rugby and cricket on the Helen Newlands cricket and rugby grounds. I and others joined him for those games. It was fantastic. Dennis, for about the last 15 years plus, was a passionate supporter and patron of the Rondebosch rowing fraternity, and we'll hear more later about that. Dennis, you may not have known, also supported cross-country at the school, marshalling events and standing in the rain at Kilburn Park, encouraging boys to finish as quickly as they could. His generosity wasn't limited only to high school, it was also to the prep school. He helped fund projects at the prep school such as the Bosch Centre, the swimming pool renovations, library upgrades, and then the purchase of a piano for the prep school when he found out that they needed one. Beyond Rondebosch, Dennis had energy and generosity and benefited so many organizations. I just name a few so that you know that he was involved with them as well. St. Augustine's Cricket Club, Hanover Park Cricket Club, Villagers Rugby, Falls Bay UCT Rugby Clubs. He was involved in the gun run for many, many years and was also an active member of the Signal Hill Rotary Club. He supported UCT, the South African Jewish Museum's Education Outreach Program, as well as the Helen Suzman Foundation. Dennis also loved nature. If any of you went down to Churchhaven, you will know how he loved conservation. And at the age of 81, he decided in 2015 he'd like to join the boys on the White Rhino Trail so that he can enjoy nature with them. I was always struck not only by what he achieved, but by the way he achieved it, with grace, good humor, wisdom, and I think probably something that made him incredibly special, his unfailing interest in people. His quiet generosity and commitment to others left a lasting mark on many people's lives. He never sought out the spotlight, and he was in the background, and he was often the silent and sometimes the anonymous benefactor, content to see other people benefit rather than receive credit for himself. And central to all of that was the welfare of the boys of Rondebosch. So more than 30 years ago, some of you may know, some of you may not, Dennis decided to purchase 3 chalets from Newton's cricket ground and donated them to the prep and the high school. Generations of parents, pupils, and supporters watched anything from swimming galas to water polo matches and rugby fixtures. One of those chalets recently overlooking the Rugby A was renovated through Dennis's generous support and named the Nick. He came to see me especially for an hour to see whether he should allow Sean to rename the Nick, and eventually consented. And that was done for his recognition and all that he's done for Rondebosch over the years. I was present with a number of others, and he finally cut the ribbon less than a month ago, and what would have become his last and final visit to his beloved school. At that function, Dennis reflected the following: we have so much to be proud of at our school, the school that has brought so much joy and delight into my life. Those are his words. Perhaps those words capture Dennis better than others. Throughout his life, he generously gave of his time, himself, his wisdom, and his resources. He enriched so many people's lives and embodied the values of humanity, humility, and service, as reflected in our school song, spreading a boundless charity or as Dennis would have said, spread joy. Thank you.
Don't know if I've got it wrong, Stephen, but I can't shake off the image of Dennis sitting in an igloo with that famous old boy Quinn the Eskimo at a reunion up in the Arctic Circle. I don't know how many old boys live up there. But Dennis was a lover of music at Rondebosch. He used to come to all of the music items. He would love to sit at the annual cabaret and at the Sunset concert. He loved coming along to those events. And so I think it's fitting. He has always spoken of revitalizing and regrowing the choir at Rondebosch. And we've managed to get that going again. And so we're going to have a little number from the choir now. I can hand over to you, Krista.
Daylight again, following me to bed. I think about 100 years ago, how my fathers bled. I think I see a valley covered with bones in blue. All the brave soldiers that cannot get old again, asking after you. Hear the bars are calling from Armageddon's side. When everyone's talking and no one is listening, how can we decide? Do we find the cost of freedom buried in the ground? Mother Earth will swallow you, lay your body down. Do we find the cost of freedom buried in the ground? Mother Earth will swallow you, lay your body down. Do we find the cost of freedom buried in the ground? Mother Earth will swallow you, lay
was beautiful. Thank you, Guy. Dennis, in his latter part of his time at Rondebosch, developed a huge love of rowing and a huge respect for the amount of time and energy that it takes to become a top rower and to achieve in rowing. And so it's only fitting that we can get a couple of the rowing community, both boys and parents, to come forward and say a few words. So I'm going to ask Judy Forer, who's a mother of rowers and a parent and a rowing club committee member, and who spent a lot of time, and a chum of Dennis's, but spent a lot of time moving Dennis around from place to place. And immediately after Ethan de Toy was a head captain of the rowing club, will say a few words.
So this afternoon, we're here to celebrate Dennis, a wonderful human who brought laughter, joy, and mischief wherever he went. But it's also fitting that we thank Hilary for sharing Dennis with us so freely and graciously. We loved the time that we had with him. As rowing parents, we were privileged to travel with him to regattas across the country, as well as gatherings to his beloved church haven. On these trips, we didn't just see the legend. We saw the man who lived his mantra, spread joy, every day. And he did it effortlessly and generously, frequently checking in to see if everybody was having a jolly fine time, or JFT in Dennis speak. Dennis often told us, with his signature tears, how lucky he felt to be included in the rowing parents group. He spoke as though we were the special ones. But truly, our lives were richer because of him. Dennis had several superpowers. One of them was the rare gift of presence. When Dennis spoke to you, he gave you his full attention. He made you feel seen, heard, and valued. He had a wonderful talent for fun. He could coax both delinquent and unsuspecting dads into a round or several of mostly left-handed drinks. Miraculously, he would appear the next morning, fresh as a daisy, while the younger men, well, they were not quite as fresh. He brought laughter wherever he went, stories, jokes, and a deliciously naughty sense of humor that sometimes could have used a little more censorship. He never stopped embracing life, even when his body couldn't quite keep up with his spirit. He told us that he learned a valuable lesson about this one afternoon when on a farm stay near Misverstand. He found himself stranded at the top of one of those narrow A-frame steel ladders going into one of those raised farm swimming pools. He could not go further up, and he couldn't get himself down. And then he kind of said, I've realized that I can't do what I used to do. And Hilary, I was terrified. I didn't know what I was going to tell you. Dennis was a gentleman. And Damien Cricket tells a lovely story from SA Champs in 2025, when a young woman dropped something she was carrying. And Dennis immediately abandoned his walker to pick it up, narrowly being beaten to it by someone else. But this was Dennis, instinctively kind, helpful, and chivalrous. He took genuine interest in our boys. He celebrated their victories, their efforts when things didn't go their way, their growth, their character. He treated them like family, and they him like an honorary grandfather. His pride in them was immense, He spoiled them with pies, chocolate and biltong to avert travel munchies on the way to regattas, and the scene was with novels about rowing. The boys appreciated Dennis and would summon him to join them for a team photo, to share the joys of the latest team medal, or rush to greet him at a rugby game or music evening. The club, the parents and the boys, all of us were uplifted by his generous spirit. He modeled living from an abundance perspective. He lived the Rondebosch motto, Altius et Latius, and he inspired many to do the same. It was our privilege and joy to know him, to walk beside him, and to be counted as his chums. We miss him, we're grateful for him, and we are all encouraged to play his joy forward.
Dennis was someone you could share a laugh with, tell a story to, or just have an easy conversation with. He had a way of making everyone around him feel comfortable and welcome. Whether you had known him for years or had only just met him, he had a gift for connecting with people and making them feel like they mattered. His genuine interest in others was a quality that showed how much he cared about people. He loved supporting Rondebosch, but especially he was happiest when he saw the boys doing what they loved. He took pride in watching them grow, succeed, and enjoy every moment of what they were doing. Last year at SA School's rowing championship, Dennis and I had a conversation that I'll never forget. He said to me, "Chom, come. Chom, you need to be in the moment more." At first, I was taken back by what he said. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how wise his words were. It became one of the most important life lessons I have learned. Dennis taught me not to take a single moment for granted. He taught me to pause, look around, and appreciate the moments that we get to share together. Because none of us truly know when it might be our last. Whether it's your final sports match representing your school, the last time you'll share a laugh with a close friend, or simply an ordinary day with a loved one, every moment matters. His words remind me to be present, to appreciate the people around me, and to fully embrace life as it happens. And I think that's a lesson we can carry with us today, and many that Dennis left behind. Dennis, your legacy will continue through the countless lives you've interacted with. Your support at Rondebosch will always serve as a reminder of the way we need to treat others, and that we should show the same kindness we wish to be shown. Dennis, thank you. Thank you for everything you have done for Rondebosch and our rowing community. Altius et Latius.
I'm afraid I've gone off script a little bit. I realize I missed an important figure in Dennis's life, or at least certainly Dennis was an important figure in his life. Like mine, when I arrived at the school, I began to realize that life was not going to work if you ignored Dennis. And I think Clint realized that quite quickly as well. I was told by Andre, the keeper of all things Rondebosch, that you'd have to be called Clinton on the program. But I did mention to Hannah, the only time you're called Clinton is when your wife is angry with you. I'm going to ask Clint to come forward and say a few words about that.
Good afternoon, all. There's no doubt that Dennis would have been in tears. The music tonight has been absolutely wonderful, and those are the things that really spoke to his heart. I would often get him in those moments when the music plays and gets drawn away. So there's no doubt he would have loved those performances. So well done to the choir and to the guys who sang that first song. Dennis had many sayings, which you've heard quite a few already tonight. So in my preparation for tonight, I was obviously feeling a little bit nervous, a little bit anxious, speaking on at the memorial of such a great man. And then I remember one of his other sayings, and it was always, Nike, just do it. And that was Dennis. So I'm just going to do it. Dennis had this incredible ability to bring people together, and today is no different. I know that the Hamiltons, Dynamiters, and the Villages boys, and many other guys and clubs over the Western Cape will gather either on Saturday or whenever and just celebrate Dennis's life. And it's such an amazing thing, like in a really competitive club environment where there's real rivalry. Dennis had the ability to have both feet in both camps with Hamiltons and with Villages, and he was a friend to all. And I think that's a testament to the way Dennis lived his life. He had many chums. Didn't matter if they were on the Villages side or on the Hammy side. So there's no doubt going to be a couple of glasses of red wine and some other refreshments drank and to celebrate what he meant to many, many people in the club rugby, schoolboy rugby environment over the last couple of years. It's a tremendous honor to stand here today to speak about a man who has left an incredible footprint in this world, our school, and in our own lives. My first encounter with Dennis was one of those evenings that John mentioned at the Calvin Grove dinner. As a young new coach at Rondebosch in like 2009, 2010, it was quite daunting to be invited to Calvin Grove and to be sitting around that table with a lot of the same men that are here today. But those gatherings for Dennis was not about, he always just wanted to be informed. He wanted to be part of the thing. He asked good questions, and he wanted to be there for support. The one thing that I always thought, like, Dennis, can't you just let me speak before dinner? He always left my talk till after dinner. So I really struggled with the delicious, it was always lamb shank dinners that we had there. But I was so nervous for what was about to come, so I couldn't really get tucked into that lamb shank. And it was always lamb shank over all the many, many years at Calvin Grove. So, I would sit there and I would talk about all things rugby at Rondebosch, and Dennis and then will really inquire. But it was really like special. For me, in many ways, he was the godfather of Rondebosch rugby. So, you would sit there and we'll chat through this whole thing. And then he had the amazing ability to afterwards wrap everything around, bring everything together in such a positive way that we felt like, gee, we are moving forward. So his ability to get people together around the table, in a room, wherever, and just let him talk is something that's really special. And it's been an absolute, how can I say, superpower for Rondebosch rugby over the last 2 decades. Just to get people that don't often want to talk into a room together, and he can facilitate that conversation. And his love for the sport was felt in that space. The first time I saw him at that dinner. The last time I saw Dennis was at the opening of the Nick. And it was such a special moment to have him there and see the new updated version of the old Headmaster Chalet. And having him there, and because for Dennis, like I said, having those kind of things where people gather around, that is the thing that speaks most to his heart. And then while George and myself was getting him down to the car and putting him into the car, he turned to me and like he's done so many times. He said, "Chom, do you need anything? If you need anything, ask me now before I'm gone." I just said, "Thank you, Dennis. You've done enough. You've done enough for Rondebosch rugby." Little did I know, he still had energy in him straight after the unveiling, and he invited me to a meeting with Mr. Ian Ryan at the prep school. So he said, Clint, come with me. We're going to go have a chat to the headmaster. So we went. Dennis didn't say much. I didn't really feel like talking about a lot of things either. And but somehow, Ian and myself, we spoke, and it was a tremendous morning of great conversation about Rondebosch rugby at both programs. And it was just once again the magic of Dennis that got that thing, that got us together there to talk and that. So it's an incredible morning, and that was literally the last time we saw each other. In between our first meeting at Calvin Grove and the last one at the Nick, there's been many great memories. And I think the headmaster spoke about that dot between the dates and that. So that's the most important thing, the things that happens in between those dates. And he's had an incredible life. Sharon and myself were very fortunate to visit him at his beloved Church Haven. He's in Hillary's beloved Church Haven. Certainly one of the most beautiful places in the world. We had an impromptu braai, drank some lovely red wine, as always, and spoke for hours around the fire. When we finally sat down to eat, Dennis, as always, had a couple of words from the heart, which he delivered with that all-consuming emotion that we all have come to appreciate and love. And then we prayed. I never quite got his passion and love for his Church Haven puffies and the resident boomslang hovering in the tree when he's trying to do a braai. But somehow I started to see their beauty through his eyes, and the way he spoke about them. I also once had the privilege of sharing a rugby field with Dennis. It was quite something special. When I entered the Old Crocs, and what happened was, obviously, we played for the Dynamiters, and Dennis was untouchable. He was really untouchable. Didn't need the pink shorts, didn't matter with his yellow shorts, but he had such a love for the game, and he's just one of those, like, nobody loves the game more than a hooker. And Dennis was a fiery hooker. So in any case, we had long conversations and debates around rugby strategy and how things are now different to the good old days where the ball went straight from the scrum to the wing. He always used to say, Clinton, give the wing time to beat his man. We used to have debate around those things, and like, why are you playing so much of 9? And in any case, the conversations always ended with him coming to me and saying, Chom, all I would love to do one more time is run an inside line off you, 5 meters from the try line, and put my head down and go for that try. Just one more time. I want to smell that deep heat. And so I'm pretty sure that he's busy organizing a game of rugby in heaven, and he's going to look for that inside line of Benny Osler, who was also a Hamilton's fly-off. I'm no doubt that that's what he's busy planning. To Hillary, thank you for sharing your amazing husband with us. He spread a lot of joy. He did many great things. I said, Nike, just do it, was a phrase he used often. We're going to miss you, old chum, but you will never be forgotten.
Stephen, I've gone off program already, so I'm going to go off program just a little bit more. I think it might work a little bit better if I ask Dante to come up and do his piece first, and then allow you to say your piece afterwards. Dante is I don't know what you call him, the prime lead trumpeter at Rondebosch at present. He started off his trumpeting career, unfortunately, with a broken trumpet at the valedictory service, and had to fizz out previously, but he's managed to make up for that quite substantially over the years, and he is a great trumpeter, so I look forward to hearing from you. Maybe to mention that Dante embodies the kind of young man that made Dennis very proud of being connected to the school, and certainly makes me very proud of being a headmaster. Dante plays first team hockey, first team water polo, and plays the trumpet beautifully. And that's that kind of polymath that we hope we can create at the school and give the opportunity. And I think Dennis would have appreciated that. I'm going to ask Stephen Schlesinger to have the last formal word about Dennis. I think that's probably fitting. Stephen has, in fact, I think this might be the first year where there hasn't been a Schlesinger at the school since I've been headmaster. They managed to produce a very long line of boys and seen them through very successfully. So certainly Stephen has had a lot to do at the school, having been chairman of the Board of Governors here and at the prep school, and also having had a long relationship with Dennis through many different trusts and also through rowing. So I'm going to ask Stephen to say a few.
A warm good afternoon to everyone, especially dear Hilary and the family, for once again sharing Dennis with us. Of all the privileges this wonderful community has afforded me over the years, one that disproportionately fills my heart is being called a friend of Dennis Nick, or as he would say, Chom. A mighty Rondebosch tree has fallen, a pillar of our community, a generous benefactor, a true gentleman. Today, we honor a life that has made our lives richer. My first memory of Dennis and Hilary was at a prep school musical concert, which Steve referred to. A distinguished couple sat down beside us, quite far near the back, and shared the evening with us with great humor and delight. Only later did I realize that I had just met a legend of Rondebosch. During the course of the evening, We may have bought them a glass of wine or two. And for the next few years, Dennis told everybody how kind and generous I was. Dennis got it the wrong way around, as usual. There was kindness and generosity involved, but it all came from Dennis. You see, seats had been reserved for them in the front row, but always unassuming, Hilary and Dennis simply sat where they saw the first seats, created a sense of ease with us, and welcomed us into their huge hearts. This came from a way of making each person feeling seen, feeling special, and feeling included, which is, I guess, why we're all here today. As Sean alluded to about James the doorman, Dennis would treat the waiter at our table with as much dignity as the minister that we were speaking to over the lamb shank which we were enjoying. He and the sometimes long-suffering Hilary simply turned up again and again, regardless of inconvenience or barriers, to regattas, rugby matches, music evenings, prize givings, the ordinary but precious moments that shape our boys' lives, even the little ones at the prep school. And when Dennis arrived, something shifted. An occasion seemed to lift. Perhaps it was ennobled. Boys stood a little taller, well, as much as the little ones could. People felt noticed, valued, and encouraged to be a little more than they could be. Even in board meetings, we were less bored when Dennis was there. I remember my first trust meeting, I walked in as though I could contribute something, and Dennis was arguing about whether the lad had tightrope walked across the swimming pool in 1950 or 1951. And of course, Dennis could win that argument because he was there. He was always adding history and adding value to anything that we did. One weekend, when Dennis hosted the rowing crew at his beloved Church Haven, he asked them, "Have you ever sailed before?" They hadn't. When fetching the old sail, out popped a huge big puff adder. No problem, a pair of Brytongs was enough to get rid of that. Predictable, wind, confusion, a capsized boat, and a long swim back to shore pushing the boat. But on the bank sat Dennis, crying with laughter. Not at the boys, but with them, of course, in sheer delight for their joy. That was Dennis, happiest when other people were happy. Looking back, we know that Dennis was generous to a fault. We saw the gifts, we felt the support, the boats, the buildings, the opportunities, all extraordinary, all appreciated. But with time, we've come to see something deeper. Dennis was teaching us how to love. I remember once when he heard that a flight had been delayed and boys were kept over, he said, "Steve, please make sure that they get a hamburger while they're waiting." He was always thinking about other people. In a long, well-spent life of showing up, giving freely, encouraging gently, taking genuine delight in the success of others. He gave not just from what he had, but of who he was. At one SA Champs, we medaled spectacularly. The boys came straight to Dennis, placed their medals over his neck and a gold cap on his head, as though he were part of the crew. And in a very real sense, he was. When I asked my boy why they did this, His answer was simple, because Dennis was there. And Dennis himself wrote so movingly about this event. He writes, "And then those young lads came to share their moment with me as if I was the most important reason for their great win. Can you imagine such an emotional moment in an old man's life? I've been fortunate enough to receive many accolades in my life through my business and community involvements, but nothing ever as great or as simple as the emotions shared with these fine young men. If there's any way that an old person like me can make some kind of contribution, then I'm glad and more than willing to lend my support to that. After all, that is what life is about." This is one of the few pictures of that day where he wasn't dissolved in tears. You see, Dennis was there. He was there for the boys, the young boys, the old boys, for the school, for his friends, for all of us, present. He never told me that he had my back or that he was in my corner, but he always was. He just was, and he did. If Dennis saw a hard time or an underdog, he was there. Dennis was forever telling us how lucky he was to be included in our community. No, Dennis, we are the lucky ones. Lucky to have known you, lucky to have been shaped by you, and lucky that through your life, we were quietly shown what it means to spread joy and to love generously with all our hearts. Thank you, Dennis.
I was just thinking that when Tim said the old headmaster's chalet, I don't know if he was talking about the old chalet or the old headmaster. I'm not sure. We've got an opportunity now, if anybody in the audience would like to come forward and share a short recollection or any anecdotes that you'd like to mention about Dennis. It's an opportunity to really get into the Dennis feeling. Would you like to come up? Neil is an old boy of the school, and he's been a friend of Dennis's and a friend of the school for a long time. Neil, over to you.
A long time ago, when I was a new young teacher at Rondebosch, my friend Bill Schroeder put me up for the old boys committee. Well, I didn't know much about the school then at all. And for the first time, I met people such as Dennis, such as Henry Salmon, all those older people now, long gone from the scene, together with Mr. Carlton Lloyd, who was in charge of the finance committee. And during the course of this meeting, which occurred at Hector Fletcher's home here in Kilgetty, I think it's Kilgetty, there seemed to be some problem between Mr. Carlton Lloyd and the Young Turks on the finance committee. And this resulted in Carlton recusing himself from the meeting and sitting aside by himself. He was very upset. The Young Turks went ahead and did their thing. Dennis, observing the scene, said to me and to Bill, "I think we've got a real problem here. Carlton Lloyd has looked after the finance of the Old Boys Committee so well for so long, but so conservatively that there are two points here, the Young Turks and Carlton's. Carlton deserves a break." And he said quietly to Bill and myself, "I'm going to make sure that we, in the nicest possible way, still get some mileage out of Carlton." I would submit no one else knows the story because they're all dead, including our dear Dennis. It's a true story. one that happened about 50 years ago. And I think you will agree that Dennis was very, very adroit in, to put it in those terms, getting some mileage out of Carlton Lloyd.
Well, any other voices? I'm afraid my eyesight is becoming dim as I get older, so you have to wave very hard. Gary?
Yeah, quick one. I know that there's been a lot of mention made about church havens, but I guess we had the privilege of being a neighbour of Dennis and Louise up there. And they had a flagpole on their property. The only one church haven, of course. And when the South African flag was patriotically raised, you knew that the mayor was in residence. And that also meant an open invitation to sail my dinghy up there and go and watch the rugby with him. He happens to have their own TV in Churchhaven as well, and of course, 2 years. And I'll certainly miss those documents.
Thanks, Gary. Right, I've been very strictly informed that you are to be invited to have tea with us downstairs, as is the tradition at schools, tea and biscuits. I'm sure Dennis would have liked something a little more festive. But Andre promises if you stay long enough, you can wander over to the Heritage Centre and he will break open the fridges there if you'd like to join him. Could I ask you all to stand to sing the school song, please? I've got to get the boys to sing louder than that often during assembly. Let's give Dennis a little bit of a good send-off here. The words of the song are at the back of the program, and you'll see the last verse is the old boys' verse. It's not a verse that the boys will know very well, but we're going to give it a bit of gusto. Boys, these old people can't sing. Show us something. Yeah. Okay, let's go. I'm going to ask you to keep standing. Dante is going to play the last post for us. Well, that's it. Thank you. Go forth and spread joy. Thanks.